Now, hey everybody, it's Mick Labinskas here from Climate Salad, and I'm joined today by a crew of people here to discuss the big opportunity of waste. And I love the complex combination of words there with waste and opportunity. We're joined by Olympia, who's the CEO of GoTerra. Olympia, thanks for coming on.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And in the intro, we were already learning some German cultural backgrounds words from Olympia. You mentioned Weltschmerz. Is that a good butchered pronunciation by an Aussie?
It's probably the best. Yes, better than mine. Yeah,
I did do year 8 German, so pretty cluey.
Right. Yeah. No. Yes. Yes. Weltschmerz. A feeling of melancholy and world weariness.
Yes.
It's the word I use to describe how I feel about the world today, actually. So.
Yeah, I've just realized I'm not actually on my AirPods, even though it's stuck in my ear each week, but hopefully that'll transfer across now. Yeah, it's interesting. We might dig into that a little bit later. I do want to get an intro, but certainly with the IPC reports, like each day, I feel like this roller coaster of emotions between inspiration and hope, and like, oh my goodness, the world's going negative. But yeah, the melancholy and weariness. I think especially when you're working in the space, so I'd love to hear your journey as well. But can you tell us a little bit about GoTerra and how you got into this amazing world, what you're trying to achieve as a company, and we'll start there.
Yeah, so I started off, I come from a conventional agriculture, so I really just wanted to farm animals of any kind. I just wanted to go back to farming. And I was looking for a sustainable feed for farming poultry, and came across insects. So I was like, oh, if I just grow the insects and then I can feed them to my chickens and that'll be a thing. And farming insects is really hard. And so then I was like, okay, so I'll just farm the insects and then I'll sell it to other farmers, and that will be sort of a meaningful contribution. But the longer I did it, like the longer I farmed insects with the idea of using them for protein, the more I realized that wasn't actually something that meaningfully returned value. To create a protein that's consistently the same, you have to feed the same kind of waste out of insects. And so then it's like, well, waste is not uniform, waste is not high value, true waste should be waste, right? And so the longer I looked at it, the more I realized that we were really a waste management company that happened to make protein, and that protein had a lot of different uses, and that's cool, but we don't really focus on the protein as much anymore. Much to the chagrin of my colleagues who are mostly in the protein space when it comes to insects. But yeah, so we manage food waste with autonomous robotic insect farms that can be deployed on site to the source of waste where waste is created, or be decentralized in sort of stacks to create logistically opportunistic waste management infrastructure. The standard.
Yes. Exactly. Who's your customer? Who buys these? Is it local governments or companies?
Yeah, so we're fee for service waste management, so we don't sell them. They're my maggot robots, and nobody can have them. But we will let you use them for a small fee. And so our clients are largely waste distributors, so your Suez, Veolias, your Cleanaways. We're also supermarkets, so Woolworths, IGAs. We do hotels, hospitals. We do 400 households. Bit of everything. Wherever food waste is made, we try to service it.
Really, really interesting. I love your maggot robots. A lot of things to dig into there. One is in terms of the ambitions of the company. Are you building an Australian business then going to go global, or is Australia big enough for you?
Look, so our mission is to address the climate crisis in a meaningful way, and we believe, like everybody at GoTerra, is like focused on the challenge of living in climate crisis. So it's not enough to be Australian. If we believe we have a solution that's meaningful, then we have to be global. So we are looking at expanding internationally. But right now we're expanding throughout Australia. So yeah, it's been fun so far.
Yeah, I bet. And did you come into it with a climate angle, or did you have to be purely practically cost-based value proposition, because it's, the cold hard reality of business, that's what they needed, or was it both? Has that changed?
No, it was always climate focused, but like I think it's a misnomer that climate or impact businesses can't be profitable. I think where we get stuck trying to make impact businesses profitable is when we try to shove them into the model of business that we have today. And so, reimagining what service delivery looks like, reimagining who's doing the service delivery or what's doing the service delivery means that you can kind of change things. So if you look at insect farming today, like insect farming conventionally is just intensive farming. So if you understand intensive farming, we know they're big, they're smelly, they create large environmental impacts, they have huge energy requirements. They tend to be centralized, which makes logistics and transportation more expensive. So why would we recreate that and expect to have a good financial proposition and still save the world? Like the two cannot, you're not saving anything just by changing the animal that you're farming intensively, which isn't to say we don't farm them intensively. We've just changed how we farm them. So it's take the insects as close to the waste as possible, decentralize those opportunities so that you can access more waste. That actually returns benefit both to our customers and to us. So yeah, I think it's just stretching yourself past into that known unknown, which can be quite difficult. Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask about, is you're already doing something difficult in terms of creating a new product that it creates I guess that's a known value that people have always probably seen that as a known value, but a new product with a new business model, in a fast changing world, which I agree, the perception has shifted about sort of climate tech being philanthropy versus profit and the balance between them. But that's only really, I think, happened at scale in the last 18 months is my experience. But was it harder, or was it logical actually just to be brave on both fronts of the product and the model?
Oh no, it's all been hard. There's no, it's nothing like. It's not easy to get flies to lay eggs. It's not easy to get, none of it's easy. It's all hard. And it's not, that's not bad, but it does make it difficult to build a business around that. It makes it difficult to hold your resolve. It can be challenging to work through the sort of mental space of what it means to do that. So yeah, it can be hard. Yeah, really hard.
And has there been any ever pressure on you in terms of the greenwashing side? Has it been like, oh, we'll dabble a little bit in here, and this will look good, but don't worry about too much about where it goes or what it does or what we put into it?
No, because people care now. That bit's over, right?
Okay.
Like the only people that still don't care about where stuff goes and what's happened is ExxonMobil and I don't know, conservatives. Like it's not, you don't actually. That's all past. Like. Everybody cares now. So there are no clients that are like, oh, we just want it cheaper. They're like, no, it has to be better. So yeah, that bit's over now, which is
amazing.
Yeah.
And I've seen your machines. They're pretty enormous. Like starting a startup even in software can be challenging, and you've said it's all hard. Can you tell us a little bit about your big stages, like in terms of like what was your was it a thought, or was it an experiment? What's the MVP, and what was the big unlock moment of like, because the big pressure you have in Australia is, hey, if you just make a really great product with lots of customers, I'll give you some investment. And you're like, if I had a great product with lots of customers, I wouldn't need investment. And for hardware products with the science and maggots and energy and waste, that's pretty challenging. Can you tell us about the big steps and how you broke through?
So it started with, can you get the insects to live in get them to reproduce? So that we figured that out. That was the first milestone. The second one was, a shelf that could manage the insects, so just one shelf. And then it was like an actual unit that had the automation to move things around and create the capability. So, and now we sort of have smaller iterations of that version to make it better, faster, more efficient, manage more waste, those sorts of things. Yeah.
Amazing. And you have raised some capital for it.
Yeah.
Did you find that you knew, were there investors who actually knew enough about your space and the problems you're solving, or were they learning behind you or because of you? And have they helped you in your journey, or has it been mainly just a check to help you grow?
Oh, no, our investors are very engaged and involved, and we're very fortunate in that way. But nobody knew much about this space for sure. Like, yeah, that wasn't actually no. There's not a lot of VCs lying around that know much about hardware, period, let alone maggot robots.
Yeah, wow. Okay. I think you had capital from Tenacious Ventures, which is an ag focused fund in Australia, and so it's really interesting that we've got these sector specific funds. But and then I think money from Grok as well. So they all work well together as investors. They're all kind of friendly and supportive. And
we're very fortunate. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And what about the next phase in terms of going global? Is this the kind of thing you feel like, is that coming soon for you, or is that something that's you've still got a couple of years in Australia?
So we had expected to be international this year, but unfortunately, just with the challenges of even getting overseas right now, that just hasn't been able to eventuate. So we're pushing it into next year. But, like I said, we're continuing to move and expand across Australia, which, that's been really great. And our first stack is being built in Albury. We have another unit in Sydney, and so it's all going really well, which is great.
Yeah, that's amazing. We're really good to see that progress. And in terms of the one of the things I found when I got into climate generally and then climate technology was the breadth of problems is really big. And then once you even get within those, the combinations of, so the breadth of problems between reducing emissions, removing emissions, adaptation and improving the environment. And then you've got powering, growing, making, moving, cooling. And then within that, you've got software, all those components. Like how, and you said it in terms of the ambition of like having a real significant impact on improving the climate. How do you think about get comfort in terms of the focus and that impact and the confidence of that this is just, because you're not going to solve all the problems clearly. Like GoTerra's want to be a big organization, but it's and there's a lot of focus on solar, wind, and batteries and those sort of things. But can you talk about in terms of your positioning within that to be like there's a job to be done here. I just want to get it done, and even within waste, like there's actually a lot of jobs to be done. So how do you feel about your positioning amongst the whole climate crisis solutions?
Yeah, so I think that I break it into two parts: reduce emissions and electrify everything. So I can do one part of that and participate in the second one. So the first part is, we can have a meaningful impact on reduction of emissions by, giving people an opportunity to do something better with their food waste. So if we manage a ton of food, it's 35 CO2 kilos of CO2 a kilo equivalent. If it goes to landfill, it's 1,700. So, I'm in that regard, like we're making a significant impact when it comes to electrifying everything. Canberra is mostly a renewable grid, and we look at where we can solve for power and also improve power options. So being participatory in how we power our units, I think is meaningful as well. But we're kind of lucky in the function that we do. So we're not an app or a machine that that has to extrapolate the value. We have like real time meaningful value, and so that's just a fortunate byproduct of what we do.
That's a pretty incredible uplift of value, and it's just it's interesting, that equation, right? Of the different this is the cost. This is the carbon cost in landfill. This is the carbon benefit of us. Like, there's a carbon profit that you're creating, and it's interesting, the equation of that. Like, that 10 years ago, no one would have paid for that, and now it's massively valuable. But we actually have been paying for it, actually, in the environment. But now it's actually like, just it's this new incredible thing that's valued completely differently, which is, it's just incredible to see the impact on that. Do you think things like carbon credits and the cost of carbon helps your product, or is not necessary, or is it, in terms of achieving that full goal?
Oh no, tax it. Carbon, we have to have carbon credits. We have to charge people for polluting. Like, the carrots don't work 90% of the time, because humans are process, and we want to stay in our little function. We like do this, we drive this car. My dad drove this kind of car, like all those sorts of things. So like, we don't even change what we eat on Friday. Friday is go home and do insert standard thing we do on a Friday. So like, you can't incentivize people to change in a way that's meaningful. You have to encourage them with a different, with a penalty coercion instead of the other way around. And so, we know that works. We did it. We've done it before with a million different other things. We managed to pull CFC carbon out of the air by reducing that, being able to use it in our products. Like, that was very quick and easy and done. And so it's just like, there's a reason why we're not doing it, and everyone knows that reason, and it's exhausting, frankly.
It's interesting. My wife shared with me last night like 10 comments about climate, thinking about it differently. Like, you're not saving the planet, you're saving yourself. And there was just some really sort of tweaks on the marketing, I guess, of it. And I shared it out, and someone came back and said, every person's individual actions are useless until there is global policy change. And I was like, I get you, but also, are we going to sit and wait for, like, is it going to change? Like, is that going to change and then everything changes? Or is there, if enough people change, is that going to influence policy to then change? Like, the cycle of that I find really interesting, because I agree with you on the whole, but I also don't think that means that individual actions are meaningless. So how do you see that, especially in terms of waste, right? I've got 2 worm farms. Am I wasting my time cleaning that stuff out and dealing with it, or does that all add up to positive?
You are, if you keep it to yourself. So I think, like, look, my shorter shower does not save the world. Like, and I'm sorry, it won't. And I refuse to be guilt tripped into turning my lights off, as if, again, Exxon hasn't been participating in this situation for decades. But when I put solar on my roof and I become a bit outspoken, hopefully I walk the balance between being an obnoxious twat and being just encouraging and passionate about solar. And then I add my voice to yet another human being that's advocating for this life and these changes, and I can dispel some of the myth. So, we bought an electric vehicle, and, I come from a reasonably conservative WOG family. And so all my family were like, why would you do this? You live on a farm, like, what are you going to do with that car? And now they're all like, talking about getting one and all of these things. And so if you have a worm farm and then you're one of those people that don't share these things, these changes, these improvements, these better functionalities with your external group of humans, then it's completely useless. If you advocate for them and use them as tools to have discussions and encourage adoption, like, no, all of us doing that doesn't change anything, but it does change trend. And we hold that power in the market, right? So all of the consumer goods in the world are driven by what we want. And the only way to change what we want collectively is to have your choices influence someone else's choices. We're seeing that with EV adoption. We're seeing it with solar adoption. And I think, it's just a matter of continuing to use your choices to influence other people to make better choices. And then being really frigging loud when it comes to political choices. I think for too long, we've created a little fence around politics as if it's impolite to challenge each other on political choices or demand that people who support certain politicians or political parties who have no action or intentive action on this issue. I think it's important to sort of ask why and challenge sort of blind support, because again, people support in politics. Generally, we are the politics of our family. Like, you grow up under whatever banner of politician your parents follow, and you generally end up being that kind of political person. And so, all anyone needs is to be challenged on those opinions a little bit deeply with compassion and thoughtfulness, and you can have good discussions about what it means to change and turn that around. So yeah, you're useless if you're quiet, is what I'm saying.
Interesting. So I mean, I think actually that as a customer, it does add up, and I think sometimes you can be there's some influence there. I agree that you're more influential. And I spoke to some school kids last week, and I said, if you want to be an influencer, go and influence, not on Instagram, but you influence the people around you. My view is both is important, but I take your point. Certainly, we certainly can't rely on individual use. That's not going to be enough. And I think that's the pressure point. Is if it was going to be 2080 when the problems were going to start, it'd be like, cool, everyone just slowly move towards this. We'll get there eventually. But it's kind of like the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time's today. The best time to deal with climate change was back when Exxon wrote their report in the 80s. The second time was immediately after that. Now's actually not a great time, but we better dive in anyway.
But see, like, to the argument then back about policy, is that like policy is just marketing, right? People make policy based on what they believe the population wants, because that politicians want to stay in their jobs. So policy is driven by will of people. And so again, if we wait for politicians to decide on their own volition to do for us, then that doesn't happen. If we can create enough pressure to change policy by influencing with unified voice. Many individuals making a whole.
I think that's right. And unfortunately, I think there's a confluence of some negative factors around leadership in politics, which means that there are no rewards for bold leadership anymore. There is only punishment, and I think the Australian Conservatives got elected based on being anti-climate change, and we've got a short period of time to make them realise that Australia has changed their view. So don't that might have worked before, but it's not going to work this time. And I think that does come in a with individual actions, grouping together and sharing that voice. So and I think the other thing I'll push back to is I look at people like yourself. I think if we have hundreds and hundreds of people finding passion areas, building companies, that'll solve another big problem around jobs. And I'm not sure how many people GoTerra employs now. I'd love to hear it, but it's one of the things. Again, I think you talked about the conflict of I can't build a climate company and be profitable. The other big one is if we look after the environment, it's going to come at a big cost of jobs, which I think is my view is crazy. Like, what's your thoughts on the combination?
Yeah, look, again, they're just sound bites that are used to leverage political position, right? The arts hires more people than mining. The end, right? Like, it's just that's like, so like, okay, put more money into the arts then. You know what I mean? So these are talking points that they're not actually founded in any actual logical statistics or data. They're just things that sound that people who feel like they may be in jeopardy. So if I'm in the mining industry and I'm, afforded a pretty nice life from doing that work, then I would be afraid to lose that life, because largely I know that I don't have the skills for these new jobs that they're talking about. So it's a reasonable fear, but all that's happening is it's being tapped into. And frankly, the climate side, or of the argument, is doing a really crap job of explaining how that changes for them. And so we're not bringing anyone on the journey of what it means to transform our economy or our grid away from mining. So if you think about it, we're saying get rid of mining, and everyone goes, makes sense, stop the environmental vandalism. And it's like, okay, well, Australia's a really rich country. So can someone present the business case for solar that gives us the same economic return as coal? And nobody can do it yet. I can see where we can make that happen, but nobody's done it. And when you think about the average Australian's opinion of how solar works, I buy it for my roof and then that's it. And I don't have to pay anyone any more money. So the connection between solar and making money for a country doesn't exist, right? Yeah. So Sun Cable will be the first exporting of power that Australia does, but nobody's talking about it enough. No politicians grabbed onto it and gone, we can do more of this, right? Yeah. Because they're all waiting to see if it succeeds or fails. And so that's, the storytelling around how we drive these agenda items and what that looks like is got to get better from our side, because we, no more skinny polar bears. Nobody cares. Not most Australians have never seen a polar bear. I care, but like most people don't. They're like, that's so far away from where I even understand the world that it doesn't matter. Tell me about something I care about, right? Yeah. So the truth of it is that Australia, the Liberal Party, was brought back into power, just before the fires happened, right? And one of the selling points to get Shorten not elected was how much money he was going to invest in bushfire prevention and bushfire fighting. So Australians are not connected with this story, and that's the job of climate activists. We've got to do better at resonating with just average people who this isn't their passion. This isn't what they want to think about. They go to work, they have other passions and other interests. Sure. We need to do better at bringing them on this journey. So
yeah, it also goes to the sense of urgency around instant gratification and being able to see into the long term. I think entrepreneurs have a requirement to do that, because you wouldn't. You talked about your first test and the first shelf. Like, you're not like, wow, I've done it, I've completely succeeded. Like you're doing that, recognizing you've got another 99 steps to go. But that future thinking and bringing it forward is something that entrepreneurs need to do. Like, how do you do that with your individual team? Are you like mostly in the moment and a touch of the future, or is there a healthy balance of thinking about the future?
Yeah, we probably unhealthy balance in thinking about the future, because what that means is that we spend too much time going, oh, okay, fine, that works. Now we have to fix it to make it better for the next bit. So right. That's a really hard part of hardware innovation, particularly. I only really have experience in hardware innovation, but we are not as good at championing our stages of growth as we are going, okay, what's next? It's something we recognize as a team and we need to do better at. But we're pretty like, okay, it works, next iteration. Okay, it works, next iteration. Because the list on the backlog just gets longer and longer, right? So we're like, you do another iteration and you're like, here's 7 other things we realize now need to be true for this to do another step. So it's a balance that I don't know if anyone gets right. You'll always pendulum spends way too much time left or right in the end.
It really interesting you mentioned about the iterations. Curious to know whether your team has a specific approach around learning from those iterations. So you got it working in this batch. Like, do your team take that sort of stuff seriously with retrospectives and things like that, or is it like just keep rolling on and it's built in by your work?
No. So we have do the sort of standard stuff, so change logs and retros. But one of our values is that we do the maggot math. So we make sure that the retros are done with members of the other teams. So, engineering can build it and design it, but facilities and production have to use it and manage it. And so, there's no point building a really great machine if maggots don't want to live in it. And there's no point using a really great machine if the food waste can't move from where it's received into the machine. And so, or it's crap to service it, or, whatever. So we make sure that, no retros happen without the insights and the oversight and engagement of other members of the department, and same with design changes. So any design changes that come about from the retros or the change logs have to go through those two departments as well, because again, they have to use it. So and that way we keep ourselves a little real. No one department ends up chugging its own Kool-Aid too much, because they're sort of checking in with each other. Will this work? No, that'll get too wet in the humidity, or they'll crawl out of there, or whatever. Yeah.
I love. It seems like maggots are a significant stakeholder in your business, and I know there's voice of customer, but voice of maggots, I think, is something that feels like the GoTerra team are pretty big on.
We decided to own the word. I got told when I first kicked off, I had a little following of naysayers, and one of them called me the maggot lady, and I was like, oh, I'm going to own that. You can. So I was like, my next conference, I stood up and I'm like, I'm the maggot girl. And then afterwards, he reminded me that the word, nobody likes the word, and it would be really bad if I used it a lot. And I was like, ooh, that makes me want to say it more. So it's like, who cares? Like, not for nothing, the world is literally on fire. If I can't laugh while this is happening, I'm going to need to just lie down and quit. So like, we should be you got to have fun, for crying out loud. So we just
while you're crying out loud,
we have a competition every quarter. The team's doing one now. We have one of our robots is called an Avery MIB. So MIB is a modular infrastructure for biological service, and Avery MIB manages the hatching flies into the aviary. And so this quarter, all the teams are iterating a version of Avery MIB, and so they've split into teams and they get shirts. And anyway, so the best names. So we make Avery MIBs out of fridges because they're a climate controlled box and they're cheap. And so one team's called the Fridge Maggots, which I just think is the best name.
Nice.
And then the other team is called the Frigibators. And then we have the Maggot Mafia, and on the back of their t-shirt it says GoTerra doesn't bury its dead.
That's so. I've invested in Ripe Robotics, and the amount of puns we have with Ripe and robotics and fruit. But you've just completely blown me out of the water, and I feel like we've got to up our game.
You do.
And I commit, if you can make a fridge magnet with maggots on it, I will buy $100 worth. Like all of my family, especially my climate denying dad, who I hope you're watching, Dad. I'm going to get him one for Christmas, and if he takes it down, I'm just going to keep sending them to him. So
I can put them in resin.
That's right. Well, put it in amber, because I'm got immigrant background too in Lithuania. Amber could be quite good. But I love that. I'm sure the person who called you Maggot Girl said that it might be a negative on your brand is making real strides and impact on sitting still and poking holes from the couch. So
no, he's very successful. He's a white man.
Yeah, as an old boring white man myself, I'll apologise for the 93% of us who give the rest of us a bad name. So
it's all right, Vic.
We're working on it. So you mentioned electrification, and I wonder whether I've heard some people get pressure, especially from very aggressive people in some of this space around perfection, green perfection, like, but your machines aren't completely decompostable, or
Oh,
your
yeah.
water, like, how do you deal with that? Is it like you striving for it but you don't get there, or?
Like those people really, like, they're this like really weird subset of like social media humans, right, that have just turned up into the world, and they're the kind of people that'll be like, you know, you could say, oh, isn't it great that the vaccine has come about? And then they'll like quote some random research that they've read and explain to you that it's not the best vaccine. It's like a subpar vaccine. And if this happened and that happened, it'd be a better vaccine. And you're like, yeah, cool. It's better than the vaccine we didn't have like 6 months ago. So I'm just going to keep going with that. So yeah, look, those people they found a place in this weird gray land where they get to have relevance by being contrary to pretty much anything. And so you kind of have to like, oh, yeah, like they're a bit sad, bless them, because nothing is ever good enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really interesting when we get sort of have that kind of conversation to figure out what the motive of the question is, and then understand how fast people actually expect that to happen. So like, really, like, how quick do you think we're going to be able to do this in general? Sarah's having a great day. That was the best.
So yeah, we had a I don't know, someone loves waste and maggots so much. Funnily enough, I got a message from Zoom saying, please don't put your the Zoom link out publicly, because we've had issues of people coming on and causing havoc. And I was like, who's going to come to a climate tech talk? And I didn't know quite. I thought that was going to get adult very quickly for a second there.
Great.
Yeah, so unfortunately I've removed her, so see if she comes back in. But yeah, well, so in case we wanted some more visitors and some more traffic for this, we've got that. But yes, I agree with you on the perfection. We can't get to a perfect net negative and get it back. We've got to do it in steps. And I hope there's a kind of combination of technologies that work together, but you know, maybe we won't get there. But so we won't get there in one step.
We're moving it fast anyway. Like in 2002, my phone flipped and had a pull-out like thing, and I didn't even have a game. By 2005, I had Snake,
yeah.
And then finally, now I have my whole computer on my phone, and I don't need anything else. Like that, it's not going to be slow. And I think this attitude that it's always going to be perfect, it ignores what it takes to evolve in any regard. So yeah.
I hope I win the next quarter's prize with my idea, which is that you relaunch Snake, but it's called Maggot, and what they eat is waste.
It would be so good.
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah, like ninja fruit or whatever that is.
Oh, ninja fruit with waste. Yeah, exactly. Kim and Co have got a question, so we're going to throw over to them and ask a question for you. Go, Kim.
Okay.
That was great, Olympia. Very entertaining and very informative. I had a question for you. Do you have a household version or a sort of smaller version of your tech that we can install at our household level or community level? Something that might be composting? Yeah, we don't. It depends. Like we have, we're coming to Brisbane, so we'll be based in Toowoomba, and we'll be serving in Brisbane. Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. So come see us. But you know, we do have a at-home maggot composting bin that we can show you how to set up, and we can certainly share those those photographs on how to build one with you. And you can, you know, those are really easy. And in Brisbane, they're quite prevalent. They'll just come to your bin, and you can attract wild ones, and they'll do their job for you. And because of your climate, you actually only end up with about 3 months where you don't have active fly movement, and so you just have to, you know, a little less food waste during the winter, but otherwise, like, it's usually humming all year round. Yeah, but like I said, we'll be in Brisbane next year, so yeah, we'll come and manage it for you if you can just hold on a little longer. Excellent. Very excited about it. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. No worries.
Dean, just keep all of your waste until they're there, okay? Just put it
Yeah,
in like
Holding on to it.
you've got a cupboard behind you.
Really
Just fill that up.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Any other quick questions from the audience? Natalie.
Hi. Yeah, hi. How you going?
Benjamin, you're next.
Sorry,
Hi, Natalie.
should I go? Hi,
Yeah,
how you
go,
going?
Natalie.
I was just wondering if you're working with FIAL at all in relation to their national food waste feasibility studies and their path to half by 2030, if you've had much involvement in that at all?
So we did a bit of we were part of some of the conversations with FIAL. Obviously, they were tasked by the government to figure out what it would look like. And they've done a bloody great job of determining the best way to get us to stop being so, because most of it's wasted, right?
Yeah.
It's a very big difference between waste and wasted. And I think they've outlined some really meaningful steps. We're a part of the Fight Food Waste CRC,
Yep.
which is working on valorising food waste. We're looking, because we are focused on actually managing food waste. We're working, the project we've just started with them and UQ is around what it means to manage really low value waste and what kind of insects we have afterwards, and pesticides or poisons and things that might end up in food wastes. What does that mean to the insects and how do we manage it?
Yep.
So we're doing some really cool stuff there. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, Natalie. Benjamin, you had a question too?
Yeah, I'm from Vertus Energy. We're currently going through the StartMate Accelerator, and we've developed a technology that basically makes anaerobic digesters 3 times more efficient and produce 3 times more energy. What we're deciding now is whether we do the licensing modular input system and that kind of direction, or whether we try and tackle the actual gathering the waste and processing it and stuff like that. And it's kind of understanding from yourself how difficult that was, of the waste processing side of stuff, and getting the waste and getting those customers and really securing them. Yeah,
so it like there's opportunities on both sides, obviously. I think everybody's looking for ways to manage waste, and it depends on what you guys can process with your technology. And so what I would do is you do the whole client segment thing. So do that, but then do it based on the waste that they create or the waste they deal with, right? So yes, Suez would maybe be a client, well, probably not till at the end of the year because they're joining, but so Veolia or Cleanaway will be a client, but which of their clients do you want? Right. So if you can take contamination, then you can take households and If you can't take contamination, then you can take warehouse and manufacturing. If you can't take citrus, then do you know what I mean? Like you should go through and segregate your customers that way, and then look at the profile. And once you've done that, then you can sort of get a pretty decent picture on volumes and where you should be located, so that you can understand what it looks like for tipping for you guys. Because essentially what you've got to do is set up a location that is within the kilometre diameter of your location that is logistically right for waste haulers. Right. Okay. So if you're out the back of Buggery and then you're like, we can manage all your stuff. They're like, we can't get you for less than $80 a trip. Right. It's not going to work. So I think it's just about, so take your waste segments or your client segments, break them into their waste profile, and then figure out where those wastes are. And then that's where you can build a customer base from. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting. Yeah. Feel free to catch up offline. Happy to. Yeah, that'd be fantastic if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Awesome. I love to chat waste. It's a good time. Awesome. Thank you. No worries.
We were saying in terms of like the whole world of climate and then climate technology, and then some of the subgroups that we need to form some of these. And it's again part of what we're trying to do with Climate Salad is bring these little groups together I'm also an investor mentor of StartMate and Energy Lab, so we are seeing some good waste-based companies coming through. So let's make sure we really do connect it all up, because I agree. I think there's a lot of really good collaboration, and that the problems are so big and there's so much scale needed that it's I see a lot of good partnership and support going on rather than competitiveness, which is excellent.
Yeah, for sure.
Olympia, you mentioned again waste versus wasted. Can you just give us a good snapshot of that again, just because I think it's a really interesting concept. I think again, the average person, when I talk about it, like I love the phrase, "There's no such place as away." Like, oh, you're going to throw it away. People, as you said, for the individual, I put it in the bin. I take the bin to the bigger bin, and then someone takes it away. Whew, I don't have to worry about it anymore. But someone like yourselves and others who are thinking about it a lot more, yeah, love to hear your understanding of it.
Yeah, so like you look at the waste you look at the photos, right? So it starts at the story. So anyone that's dealing with waste starts at the story, and they're like, oh, the problem with waste is the 7 million tons of waste we produce every year, and that costs Australia, insert whatever metric you want to use. Some say 20 million, some say 8 million, however you want to run it, billion. So okay, big piles of waste everywhere. What we're mostly talking about when it comes to food waste are the profiles across agriculture, distribution, so your logistics, manufacturing, and then front of house stuff, so hotels, hospitals, and restaurants down to households. So most of the food waste actually happens in the last end of life stuff. It's heavily contaminated because humans have stopped caring about that altogether. They're like, it's the end. So it usually has a napkin or a fork in it or whatever. It comes in the smallest volume to aggregate. So, households waste a bag of groceries every week, but that's like maybe 5 kilos or 10 kilos of waste. So, most of the waste is coming from households, but it's small per household. But then you look at the front end on farming, and so it'll be logistics or opinions. So we waste a lot of food because it's too big, too old, too young, too yellow, too not yellow enough, like it couldn't get on a truck quick enough, all those sorts of weird reasons. Or the harvest got ruined because of climate. And so those waste streams are seasonal, really hard to access, can exist or not exist in different volumes throughout the year. And so we look at that front end. You've been well over $200 million of venture investment last year in the US in the front end of food waste to valorize it into better things. So, there's now bread beer, there's what is it called? Toast something or other. There's a peel, which is the skin that stops food waste, foods from going off. There's a thin film plastic wrap that can make chicken last for 90 days. There's all this sort of stuff happening on the front end. So from my perspective, when I looked at insect farming, if you look at the Northern American, European, and then some in Australia, they look at what they call clean waste streams. So waste that sort of is back of house, or so where they've chopped up the veggies, might have a little bit of plastic in it, a bit of coffee, but they don't want to look at like really gross front of house stuff or households. The clean stuff's going away. All of the farming communities are starting to use it as feed for animals. So brewer's grain is turning into feed. They're finding ways to do stuff with coffee grounds. There's a new company coming that's just spun up out of UNE who can basically heat treat food wastes and turn it into a chicken pellet. So these are all really valuable things that there's no point trying to compete, from my perspective, for us in that market with somebody who can do that kind of a high valorization on something that's not really waste. It's just wasted. So we look right at the end where someone's taken a bite out of it. It's the sludges and the daffs and the difficult to manage stuff that we really look at.
What's daffs?
Dissolved air flotation. It's how we get oils out of water.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Right.
Clearly, yeah, I love the depth by which you enjoy this and how much you've embraced MAGA Girl. Again, maybe t-shirts or Halloween costumes could go well. Olympia, thank you so much for sharing. Really good to dive deep into this space.
That's wonderful.
Congratulations on making such good progress with GoTerra and so much more room to go. And love the approach and the team and the puns. And again, I totally commit to buying 100 fridge maggots. Sorry, $100 worth. I'll have to see the quality before I buy 100 of them individually. But $100 I'll start with that as a Kickstarter. Great to have a good crew asking some questions. Thanks so much for sharing, and hope everyone keeps up their mission of helping solve these big climate challenges with one of the solutions being waste. So thanks again.
Yeah, terrific. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Cheers.